Welcome to the Think Factory podcast. We got one question for you. What keeps you up at night?
Welcome back to the Think Factory podcast, and I'm your host, Chris Santomassimo from OGC Solutions, and we power the Think Factory podcast. And we're here to introduce you to a friend, Cassandra Gluyas, who's the CEO from Thomas Instrumentation, a company based in Cape May Courthouse, New Jersey. So welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Chris. Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure. So Cassandra and I are relatively new friends, but also, we have Thomas Instrumentation as a client of ours. We've done a tiny bit of work for the company and gotten a great introduction to what they do. But, like a lot of, family-owned businesses, especially in New Jersey, some folks may not be aware of all the good stuff that you're doing, which I think is cool. So I wanted to sort of shine the spotlight on you and talk a little bit about Thomas. So take it away.
Thanks. Yeah, we appreciate it. So at Thomas Instrumentation, we're your one-stop electronics partner, and we've got over 50 years experience in printed circuit board design and layout, embedded software development, prototyping, and electronics manufacturing services. And we're all right here in New Jersey. So it's 100% U.S. made. And what that means for people that don't know anything about printed circuit board or electronics, basically all those little green computer boards that are inside your devices, and, it's everywhere now. It's your phones, it's your cameras, it's your refrigerator, it's, your dishwasher, all of that, takes some kind of electronic controller to turn motors on, turn heaters, look at sensors, all of that. So that's something my family has been doing since 1971, is designing those boards and manufacturing them and making them work. So, we're pretty much everywhere these days.
Yeah, it's amazing, as you say, that you really don't find so many products out there that we use every single day that don't have them, because there's some kind of an electronic element and sometimes a computer element to so many of the products, and we really sort of take that for granted, I think.
Yeah, it's a hidden gem that I think a lot of people don't really realize, or the magic. Everybody talks about the magic of how it gets done. I think that's what attracted me to the industry. I mean, my dad started the business back in 1971, and his father was actually an electrical engineer. My grandfather worked for RCA and helped invent one of the first color televisions. So it's a long history of, just being fascinated by the science and what can get done really in that phase of the engineering world. And that's what put me into the field. That's why I'm excited to run the business now.
But that you held back that little gem about your grandfather being involved in the first color television. So very cool.
Yeah, he did a lot. He actually installed some of the first antennas up on the Empire State Building too, and climbed up there on that spire back in the day. I don't know how he was that brave, because I have a fear of heights, but that's the fun of my industry, is you end up doing a little bit of everything. In our business, we've done everything from industrial controls for like the plastics manufacturing. So, injection molding machines, dryers, all that happens to make any kind of plastic molded component. We've done stuff for the laboratory medical community. So we've done incubators that heat up your blood before blood transfusion. So the blood bags are frozen for storage, and before it can be transfused, it has to be kind of shaken and stirred and heated up to the right proportions. We do those kinds of scientific endeavors. We've worked with wildlife. So we had some biologists come by and want to do some wildlife tracking. So we designed tiny little circuits that were solar powered and radio transmitted that could track bird colonies for the biologists. So you never, in this industry, you never really know what's going to walk through your front door. And that's half the fun of it.
Yeah, so you're really involved with your customers from the idea stage and the planning stage.
Yeah, we really like to get in on the concept side of things, just because it makes it easier for usually our customers and us to get you the best product. So it's about sitting down and having these long-term relationships. Most of our customers have stayed with us 20, 40, and I think one of them's now almost at 50 years since the beginning. So it's been impressive, and that's how we love to work with everyone. It's the whole family business feel. Once you join us, you're really part of the family, and we value the customer support and the relationship.
Well, no matter how close a family you are, if you're not producing for your customers, they don't stay as long as they're staying with you. So kudos in keeping them all happy.
Appreciate that. Yeah, appreciate that.
So If a new customer or even an existing customer comes to you, it's often I would assume it's often at the idea stage where they've got, some crazy drawings and some ideas and maybe a whiteboard of what they're trying to accomplish. And your team is really responsible to not only figure out the printed circuit board, but all the components that will comprise the product in some cases.
Yeah, we really get in on the requirements refinement with our customers and look at those lists of what they really need, where it's going to be used, what environmental conditions it's going to operate in. Because a lot of times your customer, has a good idea, but they may not think about all the pieces. And so since we've been around the block a few years, we kind of know what different industries need and are working towards that to refine it.
Yeah, so what you were talking about, Cassandra, was this when you're at the idea stage or the requirement stage of a contract, or an engagement, you're really there at the planning stage to help make some sense out of what might be a very rough or, very undeveloped idea so that you can put all the pieces together with the PCB or the printed circuit board being the hub of it all. Right.
Yeah. So, we decide, we look at what they need done. If it's a motor that needs running, what speeds, if you need to look at temperatures or watch heat, and different types of inputs, we're looking at all of that and picking out which sensors works best for it, all the controls on the circuit board for it. And because we have a software department, we're actually programming that behavior in the end as well with the clients. So when we're going through the requirements, we really want to know exactly how this is being seen to be used, what environment it's going to go into, because there may be other outside factors that the client may not understand or realize. If it's going to be outdoors, you have to design something differently that has to survive those elements. Or if it's going to be in really high dusty factory environments, it's kind of the same thing. You want to have a different type of design. So there's a lot of different requirements that other people may not think about. And from our experience, we're able to help advise them. So when we go to actually do the work, the customer ends up with the best product, and you're not doing all those revisions later on as you find out the problems. We try to head that off as much as possible in the beginning.
Well, as we were talking about when we first met, I love to hear about companies like yours that are domestic that are doing, this high touch work. And it really dispels the myth that all of these types of products come from abroad somewhere, because you're able to do it here. And, there's obviously a ton of value in terms of being close to the customer, cutting down supply chain issues or resolving supply chain issues, speed to market. I mean, has that been your experience too, where your customers really appreciate the closeness?
Yeah, that's been a big push, especially in recent years with the part shortage and the supply chain issues. We see a lot more onshoring happening and people coming back. But a lot of our customers never left, and they're very happy they didn't. Our one major customer, because we've been with them so long, we have a lot on our supply chain management side that we do as far as parts procurement, and we keep inventory and stock in-house. So we saw the shortage coming and actually brought in extra components to outlive that bubble and that supply chain issue. So most of our customers never missed a delivery. And also having the design capabilities in-house, we were able to adapt and redesign products to use other substitute parts when necessary to get them back to working for some of our newer customers that came in at that time as well. So it's really having us here and having the design and software and manufacturing all in-house gives you that flexibility that you wouldn't necessarily have overseas. And there's no issues with supply chain because you're not, we can forecast it better for you. You're not waiting on the final product. We can do a lot here domestically and flex. There's a really nice aspect to, you don't have the translation issues and some of the miscommunication issues. You can speak to someone within the same day because a lot of times now your engineers are overseas in India and China. And as much as they mean well and probably try to do their best, there are miscommunication problems, especially when something's highly technical like what we're dealing with in this world. And so we see a lot of errors, unfortunately, and that's where some of our new customers come to us because they realize that something got lost in translation.
Well, and during COVID, it was difficult to even get a hold of suppliers, let alone get, good work out of them because they just weren't working or they weren't in their their office and they weren't reachable. On the other hand, you guys were.
Yeah. Yeah, we were still working. There's a few critical industries that we supply to, so we were able to continue operating a skeleton crew. And I have a fantastic team. They've all been with me for, between 10 and 20 years. We've got a few new bloods too, which is always nice to see. But, it's a good group that puts in a lot of effort and really cares about putting out a high quality, high end product.
So what was it like, what was this transition generationally for you? Because you're at least the second generation. I think as you said, it was your dad who created the company. And I know your mom's involved. So what was it like, transitioning from that generation to yours and taking over the controls of the company?
It's interesting. It's been good because I basically was raised in the company, right? I always joke that the business was my big brother growing up because he came first. But, as a kid, I counted parts and sorted inventory and learned to solder probably by the age of like 6 years old. The people here were some of my babysitters. So it's a little weird taking over because I've been, the boss's daughter for so long. And now and some of these people really do feel like family to me because they've been around my whole life. So I think the transition for them having to take orders, for lack of a better term, from me was a little interesting, but they've all been really great. And, I run it definitely differently than my father did. He, really cared about the engineering part. He wasn't really huge on operations, so there wasn't as much of a hand in that per se. And I'm trying to think about modernization, and everything was pen and paper. So now I'm trying to make things more digital so we have more reports and more information. It was a great system and it worked for years. But, changing an aircraft carrier is what I kind of talk about with the business because it was set in its ways pretty well for a good 50 years. And I'm not trying to change anything drastically, but we're, slowly moving it towards a more modern age.
Yeah, your customers expect it, and you got to be nimble as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, you're moving in the same direction that your competitors are too. And if you don't move in that direction, I think you get left behind.
Yeah, that's what I didn't want to have happen. So, it's been good, and the team really does agree and see where we're headed and excited about it all. So it's been good overall. It is interesting when it's a family thing.
But you guys do so many interesting projects. Are there any that come to mind as really the opus for what you do or the really standout projects?
I'm really proud of one of the rollers we did. We did a touchscreen. They just called it a roller rack, but it's for the biopharmaceutical industry. So they have to grow cell cultures in these bottles, and they have these racks of like shelves of bottles that all have to turn in very micro rotations to culture this stuff. And it really needed high precision motor driving. It needed very precise temperature control because they're put inside of big temperature changes. It really had a lot of bells and whistles to it as far as logging and making sure everything's running appropriately. And we did the full engineering design and software development and manufacturing of that product. And I know it's gone into making a lot of the vaccines and some of the biologics and stuff that people have to take that have autoimmune issues. So that was really exciting to work on and very meaningful. And, the other thing really is we've just had such a long relationship with the plastics manufacturing company we work with, that they're the only one in their industry that can offer a 5-year warranty on their products because of the quality of the products we produce. We take it very seriously. We designed everything from the ground up, and we keep updating all of their systems. So it's the same product, but with new features and shiny bells and whistles. And so that's been fun to improve over the generations. And, we do 100% inspection and testing on it. So every board that leaves the facility, there's a 0% failure rate. Everything gets found and fixed or situated before it leaves our facility. And, so they can be the biggest competitor out there. And that's been always a standing point for us as well.
That's a huge value driver to be able to stand out with such a long warranty period because of the quality that you produce. So congratulations.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah,
That's
we
amazing.
appreciate it. Well, and another thing we like about that product that people don't probably know about is we we kind of advertise it as a sustainability program now, but we've always done repairs. So instead of just scrapping boards, they send all their bad product back when it fails in the field because some technician plugged something in backwards and blew something up. There's stuff we can't foresee that happens. So we get those back, and we're looking to make sure there's stuff that we can either harden in the design, and while we're doing that, we fix it. So instead of wasting all that material and having it go to a scrap heap, it goes back out just good as new and sold to the customers again with that same 5-year warranty. And so that's another initiative we've been doing for probably 40 years of our 50 years. It's kind of a nice recycle program.
Yeah, and that speaks not only to the quality issues, but and your ability to respond, but also the sustainability concerns that a lot of your customers likely have on their minds.
Yeah. Most of that industrial place needs at least a 15-year lifetime, but many of the products have been out there for probably 30 years. We're still repairing stuff that we designed back in the 80s for some customers that, don't want to upgrade. They love what they've got and they don't want to change it. So we just keep it going as long as we can get the parts.
That's amazing. Very cool. Well, this is a great introduction to the company, Cassandra. If you won't mind, tell everybody where they can reach you and the company and get a little bit closer and explore some opportunities.
Sure. So you can reach us at www.tiweb.net, and my phone number is 609-602-9603. That's really the best way to reach out and have a conversation with us if you're interested.
Well, look, after hearing about the quality and the dedication and the family dynamic that goes into each of your products, I'm sure that folks are going to definitely be interested in the conversation.
Well, thank you, Chris. I appreciate the time today.
Well, and the whole reason that I wanted to introduce you is I've always been impressed with what you guys do ever since we met. So the ability to share that with folks who would listen to the podcast is absolutely our pleasure. So thanks for spending time with us this morning. And if you're just joining a little bit late, this has been Cassandra Gluyas, who's the CEO of Thomas Instrumentation right here in Cape May Courthouse, New Jersey. And we're proud to introduce the company and Cassandra to the listeners of the podcast. And signing off, this is Chris Santomassimo from OGC Solutions, which powers the Think Factory podcast. And we'll see you next time.